Welcome to the Todd Griffiths Show, a Century Coin Group production. This is the show that answers all of your questions about numismatics from the leader in tangible asset investing. Here's your host, Todd Griffiths.
Hello, Todd Griffiths here, and we are bringing this show to you from the ANA, the American Numismatic Association Conference here in Chicago, Illinois. One of a great time of the year, the biggest show of the year, and I've been doing this for 27 years, and I'm so grateful to be broadcasting my first show from the ANA, and I have the guest of all guests today, David Q. Bowers. He's the chairman of Stacks and Bowers, director of numismatic publishing at Whitman. He's published over 50 books on numismatics. We'll talk about maybe some of his favorite books that he's written. Let me tell you something. I've been in this business 27 years, 3 generations, and David Q. Bowers is the name in numismatics. He is the legend. He has been the frontier of this industry for as long as I've known. A lot of respect for him. I really respect, as you know, people who have pushed our market forward, and I can't think of anybody other than David who's done it more, certainly for the last, through 27 years, but to welcome David to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. I don't know if I can live up to all the things you said.
Oh, you've already lived up to those.
But I do love numismatics. I like coins. I've been in coins since I was a little kid, and I'm age 72 now. I started at age 13 or 14, and it's been nonstop. The ANA convention here in Chicago that Todd mentioned, this is my 57th, I believe, consecutive show. I started in 1955, but I was not old enough to join the American Numismatic Association. Here I am now. Each show is different. Each show is interesting, and this is a good one.
And we are so lucky to have you here, and the fact that you've devoted so much time to this industry and written so many books. I know a lot of the information that we put on our university has come from your books. I have a couple questions for you. What was back when you started in 1955?
1953.
1953. And tell us a little bit about the market then, okay, and how it's kind of grown to, and I know this is a big question, but if try to shrink it, how it's grown from then to today.
Well, if it was suddenly it's 1953, and of course I on and on and on, so you can see a sign in front of me or wiggle or something, but I like to talk sometimes about reminiscences. But in 1953, I was a young teenager in high school and entered numismatics. There were no long-distance telephone lines, no fax machines, no internet, no official grading system, no certified coins, no professional numismatist guild. You were on your own. I was on my own. It was wild and woolly. If I bought a counterfeit coin, that was my problem. There were no guarantees. If I bought a coin that was not graded properly, that was my problem. So I learned by doing. I had to jump in. I had to learn about grading. I had to learn about market values. I had to learn everything. And even though I was a young teenager, if I went to a show like this, people would be happy to see something. They wouldn't say, because you're a little kid, I'll be very careful and only sell you good things. They wouldn't do that. So I learned by doing, which was very, very valuable. Sometimes I think today that too much is done for you. Today somebody can join numismatics and take a certified coin and an electronic price list and say, hey, I'm a rare coin dealer. This coin is $423 bid and $464 ask. I want $450. But not know anything. If you say, well, where was it minted? Well, I don't know. I learned by doing. It was very enjoyable. The business was more personable than it was now. I did by mail order advertising in the Numismatics scrapbook magazine and the Numismatist. There was only one source of coin prices. Today you have electronic coin prices. You have the gray sheet. You have the blue sheet. You have the
we've identified 9 pricing guides.
Well, okay. 9 pricing. So if today, if I said Todd, if I said, Todd, a sign was just put in front of me, something to mention. I was going to mention it anyway. I will show you the sign. It says Red Book.
Red Book, yes.
Okay.
The Red Book, which you've...
No, I'm going to mention that.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Okay. So remind me, Red Book.
Because I learned on the Red Book, 27 years ago. So.
Well, but anyway, I was going to say, today we have 9 price lists. If I ask Todd, what is the value of an 1884 cc gold or silver dollar in MS-64, and I looked up the price list, I'd say, well, this price, they'd all vary, and I'd be so confused, okay?
Right.
Today, the Guidebook of United States Coins, which the president of Whitman right here, on the camera, my good friend, calls the Red Book, and everybody else does too. The little Red Book here. Okay, back in 1953, there was only one price guide. It was the Guidebook of United States Coins. It came out every year in July. Every year in July, I'd take my inventory and I'd say, what does the guidebook say? Well, this half cent went up from $5 to $6. I'd take my inventory, move it up to $6 or $5.
And now that Red Book came out how often?
It came out every year.
Every year.
It came out every year. I believe today I'm the oldest contributor to the guide. I contribute every year. A number of years later, in the late 1950s, Ken Brissett, who was on the Whitman publishing staff, said, put on the front page of the guidebook. It used to say Guidebook of the United States Coins. They put on Red Book.
Right.
And I said, wrote to him. I tend to have a sense of humor, I think I do. I wrote to him in Racine, Wisconsin, where Whitman was located then. Now it's in Atlanta. And I said, well, you say Red Book, but, you're limiting yourself. What if you put it out in a different color? So Ken Brissett goes to the production line and has a copy printed with a silver cover and mails it to me and says, you have the only non-red Red Book.
Oh, my God. Do you still have it?
I don't know if I do or not.
Okay.
But a lot of, and then he sent me one once bound in fur, a fur-bound guidebook. But I've always called it a Guidebook of the United States Coins, but everybody else calls it the Red Book.
Yeah. But
I'm sort of old-fashioned. But the guidebook today, and this is not a sales program for the guidebook, I am research editor. What happens today, we have the Internet, and if you want to find out about that 1884 cc Morgan dollar, if you go on the Internet, and I actually did with this coin, and push 1884 cc in Google, you get like 125,000 hits. Well, what if you want to learn about it? What do you do? Well, you could spend all month. So the trusty old guidebook, which cost $19 more or less, available at different bookstores, tells you in a half hour you can learn about Morgan dollars. So today, even though we have technology and even though the guidebook is available on iPad and Nook and Schnook and everything else, the guidebook is fundamental, and I love the guidebook, and it's been a great pleasure to be part of it. So that is about the
Red Book.
Red Book.
And I will tell you that I love the Red Book. I learned on the Red Book, and you brought up a really good point about the nine different pricing guides. The little thing that we did here at CT Group is that we took the gray sheets, which will go back from 1963,
right,
and we've taken auction data that we could find up to 1941, and we're working on coin roll prices. And now that I know that you have Red Book prices online, maybe we'll talk offline about that. We've put it into a computer system, and we've hired a quant to do an analysis to take those 9 different price guides and create really one average standard. And then we've taken it for like the last 10 to 15 years to show what coins have done over the last 15 years. Transparency in education is really what CT Group's all about, what this show's all about. I'd like to segue into all of the books that you've written. You're the famous author of the community. I know that we can't talk about all of the books you've written, but what is your favorite book that you've written?
Probably my favorite is the one I wrote about the treasure of the SS Central America. It's called A History of the California Gold Rush as illustrated by Treasure from the SS Central America, or something like that. It was one of it's my favorite book. It involved 2 or 3 years of research with a staff going to the Bancroft Library in San Francisco or in Berkeley, the Smithsonian. There was no budget on this book. And we turned out what I thought was a definitive history of the California Gold Rush, and that was fun too. But just like if you have a kid, who's your favorite kid, I don't know. I have other favorites too, on different subjects. But as far as one that I look at and say, gosh, well, how did I ever do this?
Right.
That's one of them.
And the story of the SS Central America, a lot of people don't know, is the shipwreck that sank in, 1857.
What happened is in the 1850s, this was in the gold rush, gold was mined in California, and they didn't have as much use for gold in California. It was cast into ingots, bars about, let's say, from the size of a deck of playing cards up to the size of a loaf of bread, also made into coins, and then shipped to the east, to New York, and then gold would be sent from New York to London, the main gold market at the time, be sent to the Philadelphia Mint to be coined. And in August 1857, about $1.6 million worth of gold in ingots was shipped from San Francisco on the SS Sonora to Panama, unloaded, put on the Panama Railroad, which is 48 miles long, across the Isthmus of Panama, loaded aboard the SS Central America, in what is now called Cologne, but was then called Aspinwall, and headed for New York. Well, this is a very nice steamship, side-wheeled steamer, took passengers, took freight, and it was a very pleasant day. They went a very pleasant time. They left Panama, went north, stopped at Havana because that was a scheduled stop, but there was a cholera epidemic in Havana. So most people stayed on board, but they took some new passengers on. But there was one unfortunate gentleman who didn't leave his hotel in time, so he missed the ship. So he didn't get on board. The ship continued further north. It was beautiful. The ship's got beautiful weather, nice puffs of clouds in the sky, blue sky, a light forward breeze because the ship's going forward at 8 or 9 miles an hour. When a gale came up, a thunderstorm, and everyone said, well, this was going to pass quickly. Well, it didn't pass quickly. The next day, the winds were stronger, the waves were higher, and it's what we would now call a hurricane, a tropical hurricane. But back then, in 1857, they had no way of predicting if the barometer went down. It might be a hurricane that passed in 2 hours. So things got worse and worse and worse and worse. And to make a long story short, the ship wrenched, turned and took water on, put out sailors, had no power, was at the mercy of the sea, and some men and some women were rescued, sent by lifeboat to two passing ships. And on Saturday night, September 12th, 1857, Captain Herndon was standing on the wheel. The Stars and Stripes were flying upside down. The ship went under the waves with the captain on board, and over 300 people lost their lives. Taking to the bottom of the ocean the largest gold treasure ever lost. This is because the gold was from the gold rush, and it's California gold.
Right.
Okay, fast forward to the 1980s.
Well, I have a question. What happened to the economy in 1857 when that sank?
There's some lore and legend. We had the Panic of 1857, so-called, which was started in August when an insurance company of Ohio, life insurance company, failed in New York. And money became tight, and we, beginning in October, we had what became the Panic of 1857. Banks closed. Well, it was hoped that the Central America, with its coins, would be arriving in September with all this gold, which would help. And the gold never arrived. But this $1.6 million of gold wouldn't have averted the panic, but it might have eased the money situation. So some popular historians would say, gosh, it was caused by that. Well, it wasn't, but it was a contributing factor.
Right. Maybe today we need to find another gold rush to help our economy,
Well,
Maybe
need
we
something.
Should start, Dave, we need to...
One nice thing about the economy, if there is anything nice, is that when the economy is uncertain, rare coins are by no means certain, nor is life certain, but over a period of years, rare coins have been fairly steady, and sometimes when the economy is not doing so well, people say, well, gosh, my last 5 stock tips didn't work out or whatever, and coins don't pay dividends, but if you go and buy a nice coin and you keep it for a while and decide to sell it and you pay $10,000 for it, you probably can sell it for $15,000, and this has been comfort. So this is one of the strong secret about coins. They tend to be a good store of value if you keep it for a while and if you buy nice pieces.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that